G'day chaps. So on the back of doing these horses, I'm now going to run through how I paint these Austrian cavalry, or batch paint them. I'll probably get away with a bigger brush. No, I don't think I've got one. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do, in fact I've already put the face paint on, but I might have to go back over that. It's just I had some floating around from a earlier project. So I'm using War Painter Dragon Red. This is quite, it dries, let me get my arms out of the way, it dries a quite a nice dark red, and then I find that flat red goes over the top of it very nicely as a highlight. So we're just going to do the whole of the saddle cloth area thing. We're going to paint all of this with this dragon red. Thusly. And then all the trim around the edges of the saddle, that's all red as well. So we'll go in at the same time while we're doing this. Can you see that? And paint all this red. Don't worry too much if you go over, because you can tidy it up afterwards. And it goes all the way up the front of the horse as well. So we'll get all this. Like that. And then I'm going to go around and do this on everyone. And I'll come back to you. All the red done. Next we're going to paint the trousers, and we're going to paint them light grey, because on campaign they did wear these covers over the white trousers. So we're just going to use, just going to paint this all over all the trousers. Don't worry too much if you get onto his feet, because we're going to paint them in afterwards. And the trousers actually had grey buttons as well, cloth buttons in the same material. Oh no, there's some in there. No, I didn't. Right, so all the trousers light grey. Next colour I'm going to add is for the helmet, the plumes. The musician is an exception to this rule because he has red. All Austrian musicians apparently had red, but I'm going to use yellow ochre and paint all the plumes. They've also got a black stripe that goes down the middle of them, but I shall have that when I do the back. So, yellow plume. So just painting that all over there. Try not to get it, you know, too messy. Although you are going to paint the helmet again. So it's not too much of a problem. More paint required. Splodge that on. So yellow ochre. And then, because this time I've done all the other horses first, very clever, we're going to do some London grey on these blanket bits. Oh, I wonder how much that lasts. Painting what she saw. So we're going to do this on all of these, and I've done this already on all the other horses. Lovely. Both sides. There we go. Simples. Can you see that? Anyway, them bits. And then, finally, well not finally, but the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get some of the bone colour. And we're just going to look for all the places where I've made a bit of a mess when I put other colours on. So just around here, there's a little bit like that. Any on that saddle? No. Or big bump of black there, so we'll just cover that over. Just tidying up all these bone bits, so they're going to end up white. So I'm going to go around on all the rest of them, checking out if there's any more touching up needs doing, and then we'll go on to the next colour. Next colour we're going to add is a black grey. We're going to pick out all the areas that are black. So his feet, like so, and underneath, don't forget that. We'll also do the stirrup silver when we come to that part. And the helmet is black, so we'll get all that. These bits are gold, but we'll go over the gold afterwards, because gold will sit better or go on better on a dark base rather than a light base. If you put them on a light base, it just looks a bit washed out. So the helmet, I'm going to show you me painting the whole helmet because this phone's getting in the way. And then they've got a black stripe down the middle of all these. Well, this could be tricky to do with a phone in the way, like so. Oops. If you make a bit of a mess of this, don't worry, because you can go back over it with a yellow. So I've got black stripe down where the helmets. Oh, and the cartridge box, that's black, so we'll paint that. Cartridge box. Now, when you buy these, they only come with this, with the spike and the musket together. There's no separate muskets, so I've only put one on because they were a bit of a pain to do, and it's just extra stuff to paint. But now, of course, because I've done that, I haven't got any carbines. But never mind, I can live with it. So there you go. So we're going to go and do all the black on all of them, and on the officer's horse, this bone bit is black as well. So all that will get painted black. All that reminds me, I'll have a bit to paint on these. Is the strapping just across there. So there's a black or brown, if you're doing all your belts brown, just on there, on both sides of the horse. Right, any bits of black, that's what we're on with now. Next one I'm going to add is leather belt, and I'm just going to put this on this little bag thing that he's got on his horse here, just there, little touch, and then he's got this, don't even know what this is, oh, it's saddle probably, but it's getting leather belt on it. And then I'm going to give all these guys blue collars and cuffs, so I'm going to use sky blue, and we're just going to go over the collars, cuffs even, just these little turnbacks. Did you even see that, or did I get my hand in line? Let's try again. Just on the turnbacks and on the collars. So I'll crack on with that. So with all them done, I'm going to now do some brown on the water bottles, and for this I'm using flat earth. So I'm going to paint in these water bowls on all of them. Time with this guy. There we go. And then while I'm at it, what I'm going to do, because as I said, the gold goes over brown better than it does a lighter colour or another colour, I'm going to paint all the edges and all the bits that are going to be gold with this brown. This is an optional step. I say you don't have to do it. You could just put the gold straight on, but I just think you get a better look from the gold if I put the brown on it first. And then there's one other guy. I've got the brown to do on them cavalry spikes. So I'll crack on with that. One more base colour to add, and then we're on to the metallics. So I'm going to do flesh base. Now I've already done the faces because I had some flesh left over from another model another batch of models that I was painting. And we're just going to do the hands now. Just do all the hands. Did you even see any of that? Probably not. This is why I'm not a professional painter or YouTuber. And then we would do the face, but the face is already done. So I'm going to get on and do all of the flesh, and then we're on to metallics for the swords, silver and the gold. So the last bit before the ink goes on, we're going to put some silver on. And we're going to do the swords and stuff. Slap some paint on them. Like that. And of course the underside of the sword. Oh, look at that, I ain't painted that brown. Anyway, that'll do. I don't think there's any other silver on. Oh yeah, the stirrups. Might need a smaller brush for the stirrups, to be fair, but we'll have a go. So just, oh yeah, mess that up completely. Damn it. So, the stirrups. So yeah, I'll have to paint that foot black again. And then the gold. So the gold is going to be on the helmets, these bits. And then there are the chin straps. Some of the chin straps go back up behind the helmets. Just the front of that little bit there. And then all the gold trim around the saddle cloth. So just all this. So I'm going to crack on and do all the gold and silver on everybody. And then I will come back to you when I put the ink on. Okay, so the model's all ready now for an all over ink, and I will be putting Agrax Earthshade all over them. Straight, neat, out of the bottle. And then all over, everywhere. Sploshing it all over. All over the horse, all over the rider, everywhere. So I'll crack on and do all of these now. And I will come back to you when they are all dry. So the wash is all dry now. And what I like to do when I mount the actual rider onto the horse is I like to do the bottom half first, and then do all the top afterwards. So it just breaks up the model a bit for me. So the first thing we're going to do is these bits of wool on the saddle and stuff. Now if anyone's wondering why I chose to do the saddle and saddle cloths when I'm painting the rider as opposed to actually painting the horse, it's quite simply because I'm an idiot. Yeah, I meant to do, I should really have done this when I was doing the horse, but yeah, never mind, sorry about that. So we're just gonna lay some bone over this one, leaves a little bit of the dark showing through here and there, not a lot, and just to give it that feeling of, you know, give it a bit of depth. So I'm going to go around and do all of that, and then I'll get back to you. Now with all the bone done on them, what I'm going to do is just going to put a little highlight of white on, just to give it a little bit more depth again. We don't want this all over, we just want little dabs of it, just to see it picking up the light and reflecting slightly. So something like that. Okay, a bit of a mess of that, to be fair. A bit in there. Go on here. And that kind of thing all over all of them. So I'm going to do that. I'll get back to you. So we're going to do the saddle cloths and things now. I've done this side already. I forgot to put my headphones in, so the sound was even worse than normal. And what we're going to do is just pick out these areas with the original dragon red. And it's going to be quite a subtle colour, but it's well worth it. And then all these bits of the saddle cloth edging, just put little blobs on there like so, ready for the next highlight, and then covering over anywhere that I've gone over like this. Just get in there. There we go. So I'm going to crack on and do all of them, and then I'll get back to you. Oh, hang on before I go. So it's this paint that I'm using, Dragon Red, but you just kind of want a dark red. Just going to put a highlight over that red, and what we're going to use for that is Vallejo Flat Red. And we're just picking out kind of the ridges, high ridges really. We just want a little bit of a subtle highlight on there, not too much. Like that, and then again on all the edging, trim edging, whatever you call it. Just a little blobby, a little blobby. And we're going to go around and do the other side as well. Highlight there. So I'm going to go around and do the other side. Onto the trousers. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint them first with light grey, and then I'll highlight them up with sky grey. So I'll show you each stage as we go. I'll find my brush. So we're going to start, as I say, with the light grey, and we're just going to paint this all over the trousers, just leaving little bits of the original dark showing. It's part of his coat, so just coming down the back of his leg, all the way down to the bottom. And then we'll paint all these buttons as well. What I'll try and do is just blend in a little bit, so I've got too much of a straight line coming all the way down. Like that. Excuse me. So we're just going to highlight this grey with some sky grey now, and this might appear that it's a bit bright when it goes on, but it does dry a lot, you know, much more of a match for the light grey. So we're just going to pick out a couple of different areas just to put a bit of a highlight on. As I say, this will dry a lot closer to the actual light grey. Just pick out all the buttons as well, just give them a little blobby. Obviously I'll do the other side as well. While we're doing it, we're going to pick out these white straps. So just like that. Oops. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to do this little pouch thing here. I want to call it a satchel. So I guess that's where they would have put the car keys so they didn't lose them. Yeah, enough said about that better. Anyway, leather belt. So the original colour, just straight back over. We'll just put in just a highlight on the strap here and a little dabby either side. Hardly noticeable. And we're going to do that on the rest. Going to paint the top half of the model now, and we're going to paint the jacket, and we're going to start off with bleach bone. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover most of this area up, just leaving little bits of the darker bone showing, and a few of the black lines, because I quite like that look. If you don't like that look, just paint over them. So all over the arms, the jackets, and basically everywhere that's going to be bone. But we're not going to do the cross belts or the other little belt that holds the water bottle. We'll do them in a different white, and the belt on the water bottle will actually be like a leather colour. So, crack on and do all of them. So, time to do the grey bits. And I'm going to paint the flagpole grey and the officer's gloves as well. But the main thing we're concentrating on is the belt across his chest. So we're going to paint this grey, leaving a little bit of a black line, hopefully, between the other colours. So I'll go right up to there. So there's that on his chest, going across his body, and then he's also got a grey bit here for the belt that goes around his waist, and there. I don't know if I'll get that on camera, we'll try. But yeah, there's a little grey bit there. And that's just to give the white a slightly different tone when we put the white over the top of everything in the next stage. So now we're on to the white. So any of the areas that are grey or bone colour, we're going to paint white. Now I'm not going to, I'll start with this strap here. I'm not going to spend hours showing you all this because, you know, you don't need to see. But basically what we're going for is to leave on the grey bits just a tiny little edge of grey showing, and on the bone bits we want a little bit of bone showing. So hopefully that way you get a little bit of difference between the two colours. And don't forget to do the straps holding the sword on at the same time. So I'm going to crack on and do all of the white. So with all the white done, I'm going to move on to the blue highlight on the collars and cuffs, but just in case I haven't mentioned it, I don't actually use pure white. I always use Vallejo off-white. It's got a lot more pigment in it and gives you a lot better coverage. I know some painters out there, or a lot of painters, will say 2 thin coats, but I haven't got time for 2 thin coats. I've barely got time for 1 coat. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick out all the cuffs like so, and the collars, trying to be very neat with the collars because, excuse the arms, you don't really want this getting all over the white. So I'm just going to come round like that with it. Oh, I don't even know if you saw that, but like that. So let me crack on. Next thing we're going to paint is the water bottle strap that goes across his body. And this will break up all that white very nicely. So I'm using, well, I've actually done a mixture of flat brown and black grey to give me a slightly darker brown, but if you've got a darker brown like a chocolate brown, that would be better. So we just want to get that whole strap's going across his body, and then we'll highlight that in a minute with leather belt. So yes, excuse me, forgot to mention he's got a ramrod for his carbine attached to him, so we're going to paint that at the same time. There we go. So we're going to paint that. And now we're just going to get a bit of leather belt, but you could use any kind of leathery colour. And we're just going to highlight this little strap up a bit, so leaving a little bit of the dark showing in places. We'll just put a highlight on the actual belt itself, like that. A bit on the actual water bottle. So just to lift that belt a bit, otherwise it just looks a bit flat if you just put the one colour on it. So with all the bottom bits done now, we're moving on to the head and the helmet. So the first thing we're going to do is this yellow bit of, I don't know what it is, fur I suppose, on top of his hat, and we're just going to kind of like dab that along, trying to leave a little bit of the original darker yellow showing through, like that. So next thing we're going to paint is on the helmets. They have this little cockade green thing, which seems to appear on pretty much all the Austrians. So I'm going to start off, I'll show you the triad in a minute, but it is green. So we'll start off with this olive grey, and I'm actually going to put 3 highlights on this, which may seem like a bit much for such a tiny area, but I just wanted to kind of show you the triad that I use, because you could use it for, I don't know, something like orcs or something like that. So this is the triad I'm going to use. I start off with olive grey, then I use warboss grey, which is like the old goblin green, and then I use this, what's it called, moot green. And that's my triad. So we've put the olive grey on. Oops. And now we're just going to put the goblin green on. So we're going to leave a tiny bit of the original colour showing. This might still be a bit wet actually. Oh, okay. Tiny bit of the original green showing, like so. And then the last one, we're going to put the moot green on. We're just going to dab that onto the very tips. Oh no, too much. Okay, I put a bit too much on that one, but you just want it on the tips of all them little green cockades. So if you don't want that green to be quite as leery as that, instead of using the moot green, you could use something like olive green, and it won't be quite as bright, but I wanted mine to pop. Anyway, we now come to the part I've been dreading the most, and that is not because I find it any more difficult, I just think it's going to be really hard to show on camera, and that is the faces. So I'm using the original base colour again, flesh base, and we're going to pick out the nose. Excuse my arms getting in the way. Such a Nothing to do with the camera in the way. I don't even know if you can see what I'm doing, to be honest. Right. Cheekbones. The chin. His bottom lip. Don't worry if you get on his moustache and his ears. Because we're going to paint all the moustaches and hair afterwards. How's that turned out? Okay. What I might have to do is go back in and pop a little bit of ink just under his bottom lip. Oh. So the next colour I'm going to put on is Flat Flesh. Now we're just going to put a bit on his nose again, leaving a bit of the original colour showing, a little bit on his cheek, both sides, and on his chin. We're not going to do his bottom lip this time. And his ears again. Okay. So next thing will be final highlight. And the final highlight I'm going to put on is highlights flesh. Obviously I still have to do the hands, but I just wanted to try and show you this. So just on the tip of his nose, tip of his chin, and again just where I've put them highlights on his cheeks. A little highlight on there. I'm not going to worry about the ears. So I'm going to do the rest of them. Hopefully I won't do a big splodge on his chin like I've done on this guy. And then it's the facial hair. Oh, sorry, just before. So flesh base, flat flesh, highlights flesh. That's for triad, but again I put this on first, put the ink over, and that gives me an extra darker colour again, so it's kind of like 4 colours on the flesh. So what I've done now is I've divided these horses into 4 groups, so I can get 4 different hair colours on them all, and I'm going to do ginger or auburn or redhead or whatever name you want to get it that doesn't offend you. I'm just call it ginger, please don't be offended. Brown, oopsies, and then I'm going to do blonde, and the last ones I'm going to do in black. So colours, for the ginger I'm going to start with a base of flat earth, then orange brown, and then a final extreme highlight of bright orange. And then for the brown I will start with a base of flat brown, then flat earth, and then I might put orange brown on, but it can come up looking a little bit like red, so we'll see. Think about that. And then for the blonde I will use flat earth, then yellow ochre, and then a 50-50 mix of yellow ochre and bleach bone. Oops. And then the very last one I will use black grey, London grey, and I can't find it, and light grey. But for 3 of them I'm just going to use them 2 colours, and then for one guy I'll give him light grey highlight just to make him look a bit older. So I've showed you all the triads now. I wasn't even going to put this bit in the video because I thought it, but it's dragged on that long, I might as well show you. Yeah, so I've showed you all the triads, so when I mention the colours as I go along I don't have to show you anymore. Let's start with the brown face moustaches. This one's a bit of a mess, but just so I've got this brown done on all of them, so when I come to doing the flat earth I can do it in one go rather than having to go back and do it all again. Trying to get the camera so you can see what I'm doing. Very tricky. Oops, I've got his nose. So now I'm going to have to go back and tidy that up. Anyway, you get the general idea. Right, on to the ginger guys. And I do realise that for doing an example of how to paint faces, using Perry's cavalry was probably not the best plan I ever had. Because the faces on the Perry's cav don't have the best detail, to be fair. The infantry are fine. These Austrians are actually better than the French or the British for you know, for people that have already painted them. They'll know what I'm talking about. The Austrian Hussar heads are actually quite good. But yeah, these other ones are not fantastic. Yeah, I'd probably been better trying to show you this on some infantry, but never mind, I've started, so I'll finish. So now we're going to use the orange brown, and we're just going to put it on here in little striplets, leaving a bit of the original brown showing. And then the final colour we're going to put on these guys is bright orange. We just want a couple of little bits, just a couple of dabs, and that'll give you the nice bright orange hair. I'll crack on and do the rest of them, because basically it's all the same principle. You don't need to see me do it again, I hope. So just you can see all the 4 different hair colours. And again, it just gives a little bit of variety to your unit. One guy, red-headed guy or ginger guy, and the grey. Come on, focus. Not sure if that's focused or not, but anyway. So all that remains on these now, I'm glad to say, is the metallics. So we'll start off with, oops, I don't know, what do you think? Let's go with silver. So pretty straightforward. We're just going to paint all the silver bits now, really. Yeah, it's got silver buttons as well, so we'll get onto them. So we're going to look at painting the sword and the sword scabbard. And also on this cross belt there's a couple of little metal buckles. So we're just going to catch them. There are more metal buckles like on this bit, but I'm not going to bother with them. So yeah, so the sword, what I'll do on there is I will pick out the raised edges of this. That one. Oops, that one. Want to play very well today, and then I will just put a line of silver straight way down, and a little bit in there, a little bit in there. So you sort your dark recesses. With the sword, I'll paint the back of the sword like so. And then I will just get some paint on my brush, and I will just run it along the edge of this sword blade, just like that, so it just gets a highlight on the edge, and then the same on the top, just so it picks up the ridge. Oh, I've already got some in the channel, but I just want to leave the channel dark, so I'll crack on. Do them, and the final highlight on this is all the gold work. So you've got the handle of his sword, which could in fact be metal, but I just do mine gold because it breaks the colour up a little bit. Just got some there, didn't want that. And the helmet. So you've got these chin straps. So what you want to do is, top of it wants to be gold, and then you just want to put little lines like this. So you get a nice breakup of the colour. And then we'll do the rest of the gold, and then they're all done, and I'll show you a couple. And that is all the riders finished. But as we know, no model is truly finished until it is on a base. And I can't show these based up just yet because I still have this guy, his horse to do. So that will be my next mission. But that is basically all the riders done. I have given them a guide on carrier or bearer or whatever you want to call him. Now I know obviously they wouldn't have taken these out into battle, but you know, you give me the chance to put a flag on a unit and I will put a flag on a unit. So there you go. Now, anyone that stayed to the end, a special treat for you. When I was gluing this officer together, I must have been drunk because I'm not quite sure what happened, but look, I've glued a sword scabbard on upside down. I've tried to take it off, but it's just trying to destroy the whole model. So I've just left it. I'm in my head now. What's happened is it's just twisted round as he's riding along. Yeah. So all the cavalry done. That's how I paint my cavalry. I will do a video on this guy, and then I'll base them all up and let you see them all together. So if you stayed this long, thank you very much for watching. This video has gone a lot longer than I anticipated, but obviously with the riders are a lot more complex than the horses. There's a lot more to do and a lot more colours. Right, I'll crack on and get this grey horse done. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.